So let's begin our panel representatives from Compliance Group and the FDA. First of all, I'd like to introduce CHAKRI UDDARAJU. CHAKRI is an artificial intelligence leader in Compliance Group. Compliance Group provides an end-to-end regulatory compliance and AI-enabled analytics solutions. Compliance Group is a specialized technology and service provider for life sciences and medical device industry that aims to improve the industry's quality outcomes. CHAKRI joins us from South San Francisco, California. Next up, I'd like to introduce Francisco Vicente. Cisco is a case for quality program manager at the FDA. His role, he works for collaboration with medical device stakeholders to drive focus on quality and continuous improvement in the medical device industry, as well as innovation and regulatory oversight. Cisco joins us from Silver Spring, Maryland. Our final panelist joining us is Larry Mager. Larry joins us as a quality systems management consultant at Compliance Corp. He's also the principal and chief quality officer of management control. Larry joins us from Bloomington, Indiana. Today's panel will be moderated by KHALED MOUSSALLY. KHALED is the global head of quality at Compliance Group. He joins us from the greater Chicago area. Didn't have to go very far. Please join in a warm round of applause to welcome the panelists. All yours.
Great. Check, check. Yes, I can speak. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Who's sleepy? Raise your hand, please. Awesome. Thank you. I see a hand there. Don't fall asleep. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll have a good discussion that will benefit you all from these fine gentlemen. I'm just tasked to ask the question, and I will give most of the time for them to answer what we will be discussing and what we'll be talking about. The topic is quality system management. I will start my question to you, Mr. Larry Mager. I'm sorry, would Mr. Cisco visit?
Close enough.
Cisco, what is changing at the FDA in terms of quality versus compliance?
So that's actually a great question, and just for level setting and context, the agency, and I don't want to come up here and state that compliance is not important, it's still important, but it's the recognition that it is your baseline, right? It is where your starting point is your source of stability, but there's a lot more that can be done. There's a lot more that we should be focused on. And oftentimes, and this is something that our center director has taken to the forefront when he's gone out and given these discussions, quality doesn't always equal compliance and the other way around. So what we're looking to do right now is really drive the focus more on the pieces and the mechanisms and a way of monitoring and measuring that focuses on that patient impact, right? That patient safety piece. Focus on that, focus on the right things. Quality should be a value added to your organization, not about managing the regulatory engagement or the regulatory activities. So that shift is really, I think, what's going on within CDRH, within FDA. It is really trying to refocus things back onto the pieces that matter and will drive value first for the patient. I will state this 100% of the time, always. Our main focus is always patients and patient safety. Your second focus should be your business. That's perfectly okay. The last things you should be really considering and worried about is the regulator, and that's really where the shift is moving.
Great, thank you very much. Just for your information, so you've got some screen playing in the background. Please keep an eye on that and kind of relate the discussion that we're going to be talking about. That way you get just a better idea. Cisco, again, I'm going to ask you one more question. Can you share with us some information about the CFQ, which stands for Case for Quality, initiative pertaining to the expansion of the Voluntary Improvement Program? Again, it's VIP. We love to make abbreviation for everything, to include a VIP for non-conforming sites.
Yeah, because the acronyms aren't going to get confusing anytime soon. So just out of curiosity, show of hands, so I know where to level set from. How many people have heard of our Case for Quality Voluntary Improvement Program? Oh, good, more than I thought. So just for those who haven't, a quick primer on this. The agency a couple years ago started a pilot program that leverages a maturity model, CMMI in particular, to really go in and assess an organization. Now we limit it to compliant firms to begin with, to limit any risk, to really manage what was going on. We didn't want to go in there and create a quality system. That's what the regs are for. That's what we're trying to really allow organizations to take responsibility on. What we wanted to do was execute an assessment that focused on how well was that system working? Was it delivering? Was it driving what you intended? Was it driving value? So we created a pilot program that actually allows organizations to participate, run through that, get an appraisal versus a inspection or an audit. Very different experience. And if you need more details on that, there's a lot of information extra that I can guide you to really share what's going on. At the same time, the agency adjusted certain regulatory engagements to accelerate the participation, the improvements that were going on within an organization. So that has been hugely successful. We just put out a report on the results over the course of the year. It's really driven a lot of impact for the participating manufacturers. It's helped us better utilize our resources. It's had a measurable impact from a participating site on patients, better product coming out to market. There was value, and what we recognized is the approach applies to non-compliant sites that are struggling. So what we are dealing with right now with regards to the Case for Quality pilot and its expansion, or new pilot really is what we're testing out, is how do we take that previous successful model and vary it, tweak it a bit, to be able to help a firm who's struggling, who is in non-compliant state, come up to speed faster, engage more. The CMMI comes in and looks at the integration, it looks at everything from a system standpoint, but that's not the end-all, be-all. We really needed a different component to that, and a lot of it is focused on how do we sustain and maintain this set of visibility into the product performance in the field so that we know what's going on from a safety piece, and how does it tie back to the controls, the actual observable metrics that are happening within an organization. And that's the piece that we are trying to find the balancing act. That's one of the reasons I think we've been partnering not just with MDIC in the development of this with CMMI. Larry will talk a little bit more about what he's been doing, but his organization, his efforts in order to get down to those critically measurable components, right? The pieces that allow us to sustain the idea and visibility into how safety and the patient engagement is really maintained and monitored in the organization, to allow the flexibility for the systemic improvements that are needed within that space.
Great. Thank you so much, Cisco. And as you can see, you've heard it since this morning, there's a lot of things going on where the FDA is really collaborating with the industry. This is just another example of it, right? And we're talking again about data, about predictive things. So now I'm gonna just turn to Mr. Mager. We see flipping on the thing there, it says something about QSM, QMS. I don't know what's going on here. So can you tell me what the difference between QMS and QSM?
Absolutely. So everybody's aware of what QMS is, Quality Management System. When you add, and by itself, that's your procedures and structure of what your quality system is going to utilize, but adding the people and the infrastructure to utilize it makes your quality system. But that just executes your QMS, adding those people. What a QSM is a way to look at your quality system and try to measure and manage and improve the quality of that quality system. So it's quality system management. It's a different acronym, but that's what it's about. It's really simple, actually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do have a better understanding now. Thank you. All right. The next question for you again. What is QSM, and should quality and regulatory executives know about quality system management?
Yep. So the QSM solution was actually identified. There was a need identified that there needed to be a better way to satisfy the requirements primarily for ISO 1345, 2016, Section 8, measurement, analysis, and improvement. And the way the solution does this is we bring a strategic measurement to product and process quality. We enliven data through that measurement strategy so that that data can be monitored for capability, special cause variation, and emerging trends. Very important, though, that data also can be analyzed. And the analysis of that data is what transforms data into something that people can use, which is information. So through that analytics, we can then do reporting at all levels of the organization and review at, again, all levels and aggregate it up to the enterprise level. And what that enables then are the people that are responsible for managing quality to manage the emerging issues and to identify the constraint in the organization in terms of product and process quality and cost of poor quality for the purposes of ongoing and continual improvement.
Sounds complicated. No, it's not.
Can I actually add something to that? Because I think there's something that we saw, and I think it echoes what you just mentioned with regards to the ISO 1345 portion where you see the lag. As we've been doing these assessments and appraisals within the industry, we've actually seen it mirrored, right? One of the key focus areas and one of the practices that we've seen collectively across the board the medical device industry have a struggle with is that managing performance and management, right? It is the idea of the system has been built up to manage more or less the regulatory experience. Now, I know companies are doing it. They're managing, they're trying to get as much data as possible within the construct of their operations for manufacturing, what's going on with their product, but it isn't a major focus. And what we're really trying to do is get back to that piece. We really want to get to that information, that data set. Most of you in the room have, an Apple or a Samsung phone, and no matter which of your preference, Samsung, you can really take and say, these are companies who are competing on the quality of their product, on that experience. And they do that by their capability to know and make sure and measure just about everything throughout their entire process and development activities. That is something that I think we can actually leverage and turn into a huge strength within the med device industry, but it's not happening to the same scale and the same degree. So how do we incentivize and drive that and provide the tools to be able to do that moving forward?
This is an awesome segue, actually, for our Chief Technology Officer to answer some questions for us.
That's great.
Make things a lot simpler, right? All right, CHAKRI, being an AI leader from Silicon Valley with your AI experience in Facebook and Microsoft, yes, I said it, Facebook, what is your perspective on how AI is being used or not being used in the medical device industry?
Cool. So just to give you an overview of AI, right? There is not a single conference that you would go to and not have a talk or a panel on AI these days, right? So what changed in the last few years that is causing this excitement and conversation about AI, right? There are primarily 4 factors based on my experience building several AI products and teams. First, computing has become more accessible, right? Today, you can access thousands of servers to do your computing because, we have access to public clouds. Second, computing has become very cheap, right? You can pretty much, train an AI model with few $100s, on the cloud, right? So that's driven a lot of innovation in AI. And third important factor that many people don't realize is the big tech giants have open sourced a lot of AI technology, and that increased the adoption of applying new AI models to problems. And fourth is every organization and every industry is collecting a lot of data. And so it enabled a lot of these organizations starting to invest and realize value from the data, applying the AI models and cloud computing capability at a very cheaper rate. And so in general, across many industries, there's a lot of excitement about AI. And there are some genuine concerns that people voice, and we have to see how those things play out. Coming to the medical device industry, I'm personally very excited to see the white paper issued by FDA for comments on how AI can be used as a medical device, right? A learning system. Imagine an AI model which is a learning system that can be used as a medical device, right? Again, it's a white paper to invite industry comments, but you can see where this can be headed in the next few years, right? I have a lot of interesting conversations with many medical device industry leaders. They're very excited about AI. They ask a lot of intriguing questions about AI, but fundamentally they want to see how AI can help patient safety.
Great, thank you so much. So it sounds like we're really hearing, again, from the FDA, from a regulatory compliance perspective, then we're hearing, again, from process subject matter expert, and from technology. So really what takes me now back to you, Larry, what could, or how QSM is an innovation in quality management?
Yeah. I think in the quality profession, quality management is not high tech yet, and that's where it's going. So what we have is really strategic methodology married with cutting edge AI-enabled technology in the cloud. And that's pretty cool because we are able to use that methodology to create the data that can be analyzed to give quality professionals the tools they need to better manage quality.
And Cisco, you wanted to say, it looks like you want to say
I think there's also a factor to the, I think the construct and the concept, right? The idea that, the better data you've got, the faster you can make your decisions, the more reactive response you could be. Even from an AI standpoint, right? Data is what you need to really drive a lot of that. Ken Skadachik, actually, if anybody attended his session earlier, closed with a nice slide from our former commissioner, which I don't have the full quote on, but I really liked in terms of, data is really the king. How do we change the whole regulatory paradigm? How do we drive, and we talk about innovation, but that information set, having it more accessible, getting to it easier, faster, making informed decisions around that, and enabling your CEO to do that turns the quality organization back into what I think it should be intended to be across the board, and it is in other industries. It's your value driver, right? That is the piece of the organization that can actually optimize, reduce the cost, bring in more revenue. When you look at the fund new R&D projects, it's not intended to just be the system that manages your regulatory audits. So how do we bring that back together? And I think it all really is centered around data and the opportunity to feed that data up to the leadership in order to be more informed, to make better decisions.
I think you are peeking on my questions because that was the second question. So thank you very much.
I'll beat that too.
CHAKRI, is leveraging the latest advancement in AI, cloud-based analytics, and computer software assurance. Oh, we said, anyone familiar with computer software assurance? CSA, raise your hand. Okay, we need another presentation for that. But that's okay. Can be the answer to better quality product, and how?
Yeah, my view is absolutely, right? If you look at fundamentally, every organization has people and data as one of their main assets, right? So how can AI help be an assistant to people, leverage the data fully to make better decisions, right? That can improve product quality and thereby patient safety and thereby the company's KPIs, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples on how this might play out, right? If a quality team member is investigating a CAPA, right? What additional information can they get at that point in time to make a better judgment about the risk of the CAPA, right? How can you really understand underlying trends in your CTQ parameters, critical to quality control parameters, that can help you identify trends that are happening before it's too late, right? So there are a lot of applications where you can really think about how AI and cloud can enable people to leverage the data that the organizations already have to improve quality and monitor quality continuously, right? And that's the fundamental principle that we are using to develop our products. But as an industry, if you see, that will be a major trend going into the next 5 years. Like, how do we leverage data to make better decisions that can drive patient safety? And I expect a lot of progress on that from multiple companies in the industry.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any comments on CHAKRI?
No, I think at least from our standpoint, and you'll know FDA, you've seen anything being released recently. We're really very supportive of technology, of the innovation. How do we enable more of that to take foothold within the industry? AI, I think, is something that has got promise from a device standpoint. I think even within the scope of software as a medical device, it's being looked at. But the one thing not to lose sight of, and I think it's pieces of what is being discussed even here, is how does that even help you within, and I don't mean just you, I'm talking even just us as FDA also, how does that help us collectively within the management of the product, right? What's going on out in the real world? How do we know what's happening? How do we get better about responding when signals occur to collectively address potential safety issues, right? And we're not talking about driving down to enforcement, right? That's a tool that's needed when people are in the mode of not doing the right things, and it's never going away. But if you are looking and committed to that patient safety focus, how do we collectively then help be part of the solution? How do we drive those improvements? I've been a big proponent of, yes, leverage it within your quality system. How do you start bringing it in? That's an easy win to start with in terms of how to utilize AI. So it is, from an FDA standpoint, something that we are making sure people understand. We are supportive of it. Now, there's some things that we've got to learn, but we are supportive of it, so feel free to engage.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, I would like to add, just as a quality management professional, 30 years in the medical device industry, I'm just so excited to see this technology brought to quality management professionals finally.
Agree. And the collaboration also and the encouragement really from the regulators.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The things that are being done in Case for Quality and MDIC. And if you guys aren't a part of that, I encourage everybody to look into becoming a part of that. It's starting to become a movement, and it's being led by industry and supported by the agency. It's really exciting, and it's just a game changer.
Thank you. Cisco, what are the benefits and common misconceptions people have about TFQ, VIP, Case for Quality, voluntary improvement programs?
So let's start with some of the benefits because they're quick, right? You've already been at a compliance site. We want to focus on looking at the system as an integrated model. So one of the benefits that we've offered is, okay, you're not going to be part of our routine inspection as long as you're committed within the pilot, you're doing these appraisals and assessments, you're sharing data. I mentioned beforehand that one of the things that we're looking to do is to accelerate the just the implementation of some of these improvements. So participating sites, we try to commit to getting 30-day notices out in 5-day time frame, site changes, reducing the review timescale on those from a PMA remanufacturing, the original manufacturing module, streamlining what comes into submission, and waiving a pre-approval inspection when it's appropriate. So there's a lot that we're trying to do to incentivize and encourage the focus and the transparency that comes along with that program. The other thing it does is it gives organizations the breathing room to really systemically improve what they're looking for. Some of them have really demonstrated big, significant cultural shifts. So it's got benefits. From an FDA standpoint, we've really seen significant improvements. We've seen tangible outcome-based metrics that have been demonstrated through the participation in the program. Misconceptions that we've got within this and what we want to do with the non-compliant site pilot. The idea that FDA is just letting go of everything from its oversight standpoint, it's not the case. We are very actively involved. What we are doing is shifting the way we get data and information to make, again, back to the whole topic of better informed decisions, to make better informed decisions on what we do, how do we utilize our resources. With the non-compliant site pilot, I think the biggest misconception we've got right now is that it's a done deal. It's not. We've got some work to do. What we're saying is, here are some of the concepts we know they work. This is developing now, and we're in the process of getting it developed, announcing the details for that to get some participants to test out the program. That first year or two as we're doing it, we're going to be learning a lot, just like we did with Case for Quality's VIP. We're going to be making mistakes, but we're going to be making course corrections and adjustments just the way we did beforehand. It's not going to be an automatic pass. It's not going to be a closeout of your warning letter at the end, not in its first year, but it's pieces of the program we'd like to be able to drive to, especially if the data and information is there to demonstrate what we're looking at. So I think that's one of the big pieces to understand is it's not done. We know we've got aspects that we'd like to model it from. There's pieces that are missing, as I mentioned beforehand, bringing in the product data and the critical to quality monitoring and measuring is key to that. What we do with the data and how we engage is also part of that development effort. How far can we take it from a non-compliant state is part of what we're reviewing and testing. So it's a good opportunity to engage. It's a good opportunity to provide feedback. Let's see, other things that are misconceptions within that space. I can't think of an off the top of my head because that's the biggest one that we're always trying to make sure we're level setting. It's okay, we're doing this, but we don't have it fully baked yet, and it's not fully announced. It will be soon, but just keep an eye out for that next piece.
And I can talk about a misconception that he probably didn't, which would be that it's being driven by the FDA, that the FDA is dictating the solution. And it isn't. Industry is a big part, and they're at the table with industry and other stakeholders. But I can tell you it's pretty exciting to see the engagement of the FDA in this process and the openness they have to what industry has to say.
And I think that collaboration piece has really been a piece of the success across the board. Working through the forums and the engagement with MDIC has made a difference, right? We are building something that will make sense. We're not saying industry provides all the prescriptions. We are the ones who make the final decisions on what we accept or take. But we do have an opportunity to provide guardrails, move it in the direction, provide clarity on the information needs we have. And oftentimes when we've done that, more than I think I'd even care to admit, because sometimes they've gone way further than I was expecting, our industry components actually give us back more data. It changes the dynamic quite a bit.
And I agree. And the one thing I know Larry talked about MDIC and the Case for Quality, there's a lot of investment that coming from the FDA, and there's budget approved. So the FDA has a larger stake, and they're really looking for your benefit, to your advantage as well. So Larry, I have a question for you. What would be the next step for executives besides calling compliance group right after this presentation? What would be the best, the next step? What resources, people, to dive in really deeper in discussing QSM?
Yeah, I would encourage executives to take, and I'm talking about the entire executive team, to take a real good look at how you're structured. If your quality organization is just built to run parts of the quality system, which many are, I call that quality operations, and not necessarily built to step back and look at the quality of the quality system and improve the quality of the quality system, I would encourage executives to take a good hard look at that and really think about another thing, which is, and this is just my opinion, but I would say any 483 observation can always be tied back to an observation that maybe wasn't delivered for management responsibility. If the executive team engages from a management responsibility perspective and really thinks about their obligation to provide the organization with what it needs to maintain compliant operations, to ensure that they're effective in getting the results they need, process by process and systemically. And because it's a business, ensure operational efficiency, I think it goes all the way to patient safety, but it's satisfying all the stakeholders, not just the patients and users.
Great, thank you. You got something to say?
No, I just wanted to add quickly here, because I wanted to clarify, you mentioned before, there's a benefit industry. I wanted to let everybody understand, one of the things that we've learned significantly throughout our engagements is the benefit we really want to drive is the benefit towards the patient. But what we as FDA have learned is that there doesn't have to be a lose-lose, win-lose scenario with that. We can have a win-win. There's no reason why in that focus towards patients, there isn't value for the organization, and we would be opposed to you benefiting or taking advantage of that value. The idea of the changes that we made and we offered up from our Case for Quality VIP program standpoint, the very first time we announced them as modifications we were making because we realized that systemically the system was slowing things down, and we needed to be part of helping recalibrate or resolve that solution. The article that went out very close to that had a lovely set of a person shopping with gift bags and said, goodies for industry, regulatory benefits across the board. Okay, it wasn't what we had intended, but we understand that it's there, and there was a value proposition to that. So I think as we keep moving forward, keeping that focus, and I think it's always been a foundational key, patients are our main priority, and all of this does is help us serve them better. If you manage that resource and provides more value on your end, it's great. We're supportive of that. We can manage our resources and get value on our end also, and I think that's the main mindset moving forward with a lot of this.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm done with my questions, but I'm sure the audience probably have some questions. We got pretty much maybe 2 or 3 questions at most. Any questions from the audience to our panels? Do I see a hand up?
Yes, there was a hand up over here.
Yep.
Waiting for the mic.
Hello. So we have seen the kind of the document came from FDA about the machine learning AI-based systems, and it's not of course, not yet a regulation. Right. It is not. It's more like asking for questions, asking for comments, etc. So my question is actually twofold. First is that when can we expect actually a regulation coming out of that? And number 2 is more with respect to, and that is possibly a little bit more future-looking, that there are many similar devices coming out, SAMD or medical device software, SIMD or whatever you call it, and those softwares already in the market, some of them, and without the regulation, how you are actually managing them, how are you really tracking them?
So let me start with the regulation piece first. And you're correct, the discussion paper was exactly that. It was a discussion paper. We are inviting information, right? We are inviting people to help us understand or answer the questions. I don't think you want us rushing to a regulation until we have a better understanding of what the implication is, what are the best ways to assure that moving forward. So that's not going to be an immediate solution. There's a lot in that field that is still evolving, and we want to actually be part of the collaborative and understanding what's the best way to maintain the right level of oversight around that piece. So it's not stifling innovation, but we are assuring the safety portions for the patients. The second portion to that question is there is a lot of product out there. What we've done and what we do is right now, and something like understanding more collectively with an eye out will allow us to issue a broad guidance or maybe down the road a regulation. What we do right now is one by one as we do the review, right? It is exactly part of that review. How do we assure each product and it's meeting its intent, the system's delivering the way it's supposed to be. It's really done on a per product during the review stage phase, but there's opportunities to change that a bit.
Just to add one quick comment, that at least my opinion, that guidance is more for releasing AI to an end user patient. Whereas AI for within the enterprise itself to do better quality operations based on the data and so on is still up to the discretion of the quality leadership, right? And how you can use AI or any other technology that can help build better products.
Sounds great.
Hello.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question with regards to the new paradigm of software assurance. So for non-product software, I'm not sure if the FDA has released the draft this year yet. And secondly, as a company, if we decide to take this approach already, will FDA support that with what we know only at this point?
So for people who are in the room who are not familiar with it, early on when we engaged in Case for Quality, we're talking about these data systems management. One of the things that we ran into was this idea of, when you're bringing in these systems, the level of validation required was oftentimes a huge burden, a barrier to implementation, incredible costs, incredible amount of effort. It was not something we had ever intended. So one of the things that we started working on was, how do we shift the paradigm around that and make it easier to implement these technologies? And these are all about everything else that goes into making a medical device. You've got software as a medical device, you've got software in a medical device, and then you've got everything else. And if you look at our general principles of software validation guidance, that everything else is covered by a half-a-page paragraph. And it ended up resulting in a lot of confusion, a lot of extra burden, and what we wanted to do was reset that a little bit. So that's where the concept of computer system assurance came into play. We've worked on principles, we've worked on ideas, we've tested some of those out with organizations, built up enough of it that we started putting it all together into a guidance, draft guidance that we've been working on. It is on our A list. It was on our A list last year, but stuff happened in terms of government shutdowns. It kind of set the schedule off, and we got bumped into this year. So it's still there. It is our commitment to try to get that draft out to provide feedback and to provide efforts. But one of the things that we've been talking about as we've gone out on these sessions is nothing that is prescribed in there is outside the scope of the regulations. So when you talk about will FDA support if you're implementing that, yes, we will. If you need more discussions, if you need more, backing within that scope for your organization, come talk to us. We can figure out a way to really meet that need and move forward with that. But a lot of the principles are intended to help accelerate and really bring the value and the cost down of implementing some of these technologies.
And by the way, for those of you, we've been taking this computer software assurance on the road for a roadshow, really Cisco, myself, and others from within the industry who've implemented it. And as compliance group, also implementing close to 8 clients, helping the industry move forward with it and lessen that burden. And again, just like Cisco said, nothing that we're doing is outside the current regulation. And I think our time is up. And we'll probably, if you have any additional questions, please stop by our booth, booth 27. I think Cisco's here till literally late this afternoon. If you have any additional questions, please stop by, or any of us, myself, Larry, or CHAKRI will be more than happy to answer. Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it.